wherever you may be in our fine part of the world or even far away. It's great that you could join us. I'd like for us to kind of go back to the Gospel of Matthew. We've made it through the holiday season, I think, for the most part. Do you remember where, before we came into the holidays, we were following Jesus and the disciples during Holy Week? And I want to go back because there's something it'd be Thursday night. They're celebrating Passover. And a very interesting thing happens in the way that Matthew tells the story. And I wanted to make sure you caught this really interesting thing. And I'm going to start reading Matthew chapter 26, especially if I can find my place right there, verse 20. And I'm going to read a few verses. And after a little bit, we're going to have a short quiz. So pay attention to details. Won't be on paper. It will not go in your permanent record. But we're going to have a little quiz about a couple little details in this account. Again, if you can picture them, the 12 plus Jesus reclining around a fairly large table, but not so large that they can't reach into it, because they would take bread and they would dip out of a bowl something that looked like a casserole, and you would just kind of, everybody would, that's how they were in telling the stories of the Passover. So let's go over this again. When it was evening, Jesus took his place with the 12, and while they were eating, he said, I like this. He doesn't go, excuse me, if I could have everybody's attention, I have a very important announcement to make. Are you ready for this? They're eating. They're eating. They're chewing their food. They're drinking. They're enjoying one another's company, occasionally talking about the Passover maybe. But it was kind of an evening-long feast that they would have. And they're eating. So it's not in the middle of a special program or worship or something. They're eating. And he says, truly, I tell you, one of you will betray me. And they became greatly distressed and began to say to him, one after another, surely not I, Lord. He answered, the one who has dipped his hand into the bowl with me will betray me. You've heard me say numerous times, who dips into the bowl? They all were doing it. They were all doing it. The Son of Man goes as it is written of him, but woe to that one by whom the Son of Man is betrayed. It would have been better for that one not to have been born. Judas, who betrayed him, said, surely not I, Rabbi. He replied, you have said so. How many of us were watching football Thursday night? I think it was Thursday night. Could I see hands? I'm really curious how many people were watching that. Okay, so not quite half of us. It's something that I've been anticipating for a long, long time. But if you didn't see it, it was the Cincinnati Bengals and where are the Bills from? Buffalo Bills, right? Real big, exciting game. And I've always wondered, what are you going to do when somebody becomes so injured that it's just going to be devastating and the whole world is watching? And of course, there's a young man by the name of Damar Hamlin. He gets hit in the chest, not all that hard, but the timing was such that it stopped his heart. And so the players gathered around, a stadium full of people, TV from everywhere, and my phone's talking to me. I hope it'll finish doing that. They were doing CPR. They were inserting a breathing tube to get oxygen to him because his heart was not breathing. His brain was not getting oxygen. You saw all the players around praying, and the commentators were going back and not sure what to say, but with just a huge amount of concern for the welfare of this young man. And everybody's going, well, they eventually, put him in the ambulance and took him to the hospital. What do we do? And of course, people were watching this all over this country, if not even other places around the world. And they continue with updates on the news. They were talking about him. Critical condition. He has his own charitable organization that reaches out to the children in his community. And I think his goal for the holidays was that they would raise like $2,500. That was their goal to raise over the holidays. They have now received over $8 million. $8 million around the world, if not the country, to support this effort. It was just an amazing thing, and it was so beautiful, and it reminds me, again, how wonderful people can be. There really are, and I was thinking, watching all of this outpouring of love for this young man, 24 years old, Cincinnati, I think they were at, and everybody just had, they couldn't stop following his situation, what's going to happen. And I thought, I bet there's a real good chance that there's another 24-year-old young man in a hospital there in Cincinnati that's on the edge of his life. Where's the outpouring of love for him? But the countless people around this world whose lives are on the very edge, yet we don't respond the same. You're rooting for somebody, you're hoping something good for somebody. A lot of people felt like in a way they kind of knew him, and then when this thing happens, this amazing outpouring of love. What about all the people around this world in hospitals, even younger than he is? Where was that outpouring of love for them? They had a report on the news the other day about how many children have died in the state of Indiana. Anybody see this? I think it was 2 years ago, the best figures, somewhere about 60 children died as a result of like accidents and abuse and stuff. 60 in this state. And I found myself thinking about that, and it occurred to me, I recognize how tragic that is, and I'm often telling people about these kinds of statistics, but I didn't feel the same way about it, about the way I did watching this young man almost lose his life the other night. And I thought, if we saw what was happening to these children, if we saw it, and had some idea of who they were, I bet we would have the same kind of outpouring of love and support that we have for this young man over here. Okay, so why am I saying this? The disciples are watching Jesus, but they don't get it. They're not, they're listening to Jesus preach, they're seeing the miracles that he does, profoundly affecting other people's lives. So they see it, but they're invested in it because they have themselves invested in it. But do they really get what Jesus is about to do? They really seem oblivious. Somebody's going to betray me tonight? Oh, no, that is not possible. How could you talk like that, Jesus? How could you possibly do that? Sometimes I think one of the things that sets believers apart from other people is that we are willing to watch and listen and feel with the rest of the world. While most people are trying to protect themselves from the horrors of this world, we're willing to go there. We're willing to find out what other people are struggling with and what kind of overwhelming issues are just in a devastating way harming other people. We are willing to go there and to experience, to share it with them. But then sometimes we don't. I had an interesting thing happen to me the other day. When you hear about this, you're probably going to call the authorities to come and check on me or something. Anyway, you know I like to play tennis and pickleball. I was going to play pickleball the other day. And I put on my play clothes and I wear, no, there's none there. So I go to my laundry, get some clean ones out, and I put on 2 pairs, get all dressed and go. Ended up playing for a very short amount of time, ran some errands, did some other things. And I came home and I said, well, okay, let's get my other clothes on. So I take off my right shoe and there's a on my foot. And I thought, that is the oddest thing. I remember going to the drawer and not finding any, and I had to go to the laundry room, and I remember getting 2 pairs of socks, and I remember putting all 4 of them on. But I only had 1 sock on my... So I took off my left shoe, and what did I find? I found 3 socks on my left foot. And I thought, I need some supervision. And as I thought about it, one of the things that kind of impressed me was what? I didn't notice. I spent half of the morning running around and playing with 3 socks on one foot, 1 on the other, and had no idea. I'm thinking, what's happening? Am I that out of touch with my own experience? They really weren't paying attention. They were noticing what they wanted to notice, but they weren't really sensing what Jesus was going through and what he was about to do for the world. And so he says, one of you is going to betray me. And all of the disciples one after another responded with, it couldn't be me. And what did they call him? What did they call him? One after another, they said, couldn't be me. Anybody? Hang on a minute. Lord. Every one of them called him Lord. It wasn't me, Lord. It couldn't be me, Lord. I would never do such a thing, Lord. And then it was Judas's turn. And he said, surely not I. He calls him Rabbi. It's the first time in the Gospel of Matthew that somebody calls him Rabbi. Now, if you're just kind of reading through, you might miss this. Okay? Why does Matthew bother to tell us what the others are calling him, but Judas calls him Rabbi? They call him Lord. Do they get it? No. But they did get the A+ answer. He is their Lord. But now it's Judas's turn, and he refers to him as what? As teacher. Reverend, doctor, if you will. But not Lord. And I think he's trying to show us that at this point, even beyond the other disciples, he's not Lord to Judas. And it made me stop and think, I've been talking about what the disciples are seeing and what they're not seeing, and Judas even more so in his desperation to accomplish something out of what is about to take place. And he's the one who knows. How does he know what's about to happen? Because he's the one who's put it in place. He's already talked to, they've set it up, and he's going to identify him. But he is the one that doesn't get. If somebody, Tom, our visitor here, but suppose one of your friends came with you here this morning, and Jesus was sitting here. Your friend has never been to church before in their life, but they can sense there is something about Jesus. There's something about him that they want to know. And they look to you and they said, would you please introduce me to him? I want to know who he is. How would you introduce him? What would you call him? I was looking at I wore this tie. It's one of my favorite ties if you pay attention, because it's got names of God, the bread of life, King of Kings, Jehovah, Lord, Christ, the truth, Messiah, the Alpha and the Omega. It goes on from there. So there's not, I don't think, exactly a correct answer, but what would yours be? How would you introduce your friend to Jesus? Would it just be Rabbi? Would it be Lord? And I had to think about that. Because throughout the gospel, they don't. They just holler at him and say, I want this, I need that. Would you please fix this? The disciples are starting to get the right answer, but then there's Judas. And he really misses. No. Maybe the first day you met him, he would have been Rabbi, but he's so far beyond that. What do we notice? What do we pay attention to? What do we feel is going wrong in our world? You see this on these. Whenever I hear there's something on about a musician, I always make a point of watching it. This little 11-year-old boy by the name of Jude Kafir, I think is how you say his name. 11 years old, has autism, and they had a little piano keyboard, and one day he just walked over to just tore it up. Did you see this? And just playing it was just amazing. And so they got him a full keyboard they put on the table, and it's just amazing when he never played, had a lesson or nothing. Just, it was amazing. And a local piano tuner found out about him. His name, Bill Magnuson. And he heard what this 11-year-old boy was doing. And you just can't hardly believe it, that somebody who's never touched a piano could do this. Actually, if you ask me later, I can kind of explain from a neurological perspective how this happens. But he saw what this, and this family had just immigrated from Ghana, I think. I think they had 4 kids. And one of them was this little boy with autism. And so the piano tuner showed up one day with a what? Did anybody see this? Nobody? Yeah. A grand piano. A grand piano. I was reading about this, and it cost him $15,000. But they said the piano was worth $45,000. My guess was that he came up with the 15, and the company that sold the piano probably would have normally sold it for $45,000. They didn't say that, but that's my best figure on how that happened. And just shows up with a grand piano, and they showed that when they were bringing that in. He's like jumping up and down. It was just the most precious thing you'll ever see. And he didn't really know the family. But when he found out about this boy and this amazing ability, and they were interviewing the piano tuner, and they said, "Why, you're doing this?" And it's just, he said, his ability is just, it's just, we can't describe it. And they said, "Well, how's he able to do this?" And he said, "It's from out there somewhere. This is that we can't figure out where this comes from." And he says, "But you decided to do this." And he says, "Yes." And he said, not only does he give him this grand piano, but he agrees to tune it every month for as long as he lives. Again, they're asking him, he says, "How can you do this for these people that you don't know?" And he said, "We're family now." Didn't know hardly anything about them, but he says, "We're family now." I'm thinking, he gets it. We're family now. Made me stop and think, if I was going to introduce somebody to Jesus to somebody, what would I call them? There are 2 times in this gospel where somebody calls Jesus Rabbi. This is the first time. When is the second? There's only one other time. They go out to the Garden of Gethsemane. The soldiers and the police show up to arrest Jesus. And Judas walks up and he kisses his hand, as they would a teacher in that day, and referred to him as what? Rabbi. It's the only other place in this gospel where you hear him called Rabbi. And Jesus responded by calling him what? Friend. Sometimes I wonder if I pay enough attention to what God is doing in this world, that He's created all of us to be family, not just friend, but family forever. Heavenly Father, help us to be honest with ourselves and to take the time to notice what gets our attention and what gets our heart. And help us to see other people the way you do, even those that we wouldn't want to know, even those that we hate. Help us to know that they have been called to be the children of God as well. In Jesus' name, amen. Let's close our service by turning in our hymnals to page 337. We'll do verses 1 and 4. And I'll say goodbye to everybody else. I pray that you'll have a wonderful Lord's Day, a great week. Hope to see you soon. Bye for now.